Hey girls, I wanted to pop in and give my 2 cents that nobody asked for on Amberlynn Reid's alleged goodbye video from YouTube, though I don't believe it will be the last one.
Will I come on here randomly? Sure.
Amberlynn Reid has been displaying her toxic cycles on YouTube for 13 years. At the forefront of our mind, it's usually her toxic food consumption cycle that she has been displaying from the very inception of her channel, and it's actually the reason this train wreck ever even left the station. After all, ALR infamously started her channel because she wanted to go on a weight loss journey, and she believed that posting her journey on YouTube would make her feel accountable to an audience. We now know how this story ends. ALR never actually provided any real accountability to her viewers, like she said she intended to in the very beginning. In the end, she gained over 200 pounds. And this is just one of the most glaring examples of her inability to take accountability, even when she was the one who set up the premise to begin with. In what's presumed to be her goodbye in the form of a community post, Amberlynn talks about having learned lessons during her YouTube career, and she talks about the platform serving as a mirror for her. I think part of her statement regarding YouTube serving as a mirror is correct. The videos that Amberlynn made during her many years on YouTube showed the person she really is, regardless of her attempts of displaying a fun, empathetic, caring, quirky, loving character. What we actually saw was a selfish, cruel, narcissistic, and empty person. And I think a lot of reaction channels, along with Hater Nation, reflected that back at her, just like a mirror. And Amberlynn hated the reflection she saw. She hated that she couldn't completely curate and control everyone's perception of her. The cracks in her facade became more and more clear the more she uploaded, but the attention and comments were so intoxicating she couldn't stop herself from uploading. And then later came the money. More money than someone as idle and talentless as Amberlynn Reid could ever expect to earn in her lifetime. I have seen many people say that Amberlynn changed so much during her time on YouTube, that during the Crystal era, when ALR first started uploading on YouTube, she was shy, somewhat humble, and meek. I couldn't disagree more. I think her audience just didn't know her then. I think the mask was on full effect, and her copying of Crystal's personality led to that effect. But the longer Amberlynn stayed and continued uploading to YouTube, the more she became comfortable with showing parts of herself that began to inform her audience of her real motivations and desires. I think over the years, Amberlynn became more and more complacent with how she presented herself on YouTube, and she cared less and less how much people saw behind the mask. After a while, the audience's awareness of Amberlynn's real self became one of her weapons. Now, all of a sudden, not only was she a victim of her upbringing, which she truly was, not only was she a victim of her exes, of her circumstances, of her weight, but she also became a victim of her audience. I believe that in her mind, that new victim status justified her behavior towards her supporters, just as it justified her behavior towards her family and towards her exes.
Reaction channels have created an environment, a safe space, a community to literally breed and feed off of hating me. And this has led to a lot of bad things in my life. A lot. Genuinely. And I have gotten through it every single time.
Over the last few years, rather than improving, she dug herself in deeper, stuck in the same victim mentality with which she started on YouTube, with the addition of complacency. She refused to learn anything because that would mean the haters were right. Amberlynn was willing to cut off her nose to spite her face. Amberlynn has always been smug, but it seems like since the Jade/wifey/Feline era, it became unbearable. I think Amberlynn got validated by the two things she cared about the most, that is, romantic attention and money. I believe that in her head, Amberlynn thought, if this behavior gets her what she believed to be the hottest girlfriend, aka Jade, and piles of money shortly before Jade during Beck era, then obviously her behavior was something to strive for. The audience criticism never actually mattered, ever. The fact that she still got thousands of views and thousands of dollars is all she needed to never reflect for a single second about her behavior. Amberlynn is an extremely surface-level, shallow person, and attention and money was all she ever needed to validate her fuckery and to ignore anything that went further than 1 inch deep. Much of the criticism ALR received over the last decade has pointed out her toxic cycles, her mistreatment of her pets, and of the people in her life. I think towards the end, much of her audience had completely lost hope regarding ALR's health, and the viewer's plight became much more focused on justice for her pets, especially Rarity, and on demanding accountability regarding Amber's abusive behavior towards her exes. One of the biggest issues with these topics is that Amber doesn't see herself as an abusive person. All of her actions are justified in her mind. The mirror that viewers and reaction channels held in front of Amber was dismissed as lies, because again, it would require delving more than 1 inch deep. And Amber had already established her position as victim to all, accountable to none.
That has nothing to do with me. I don't care what I did while hurting. I don't care.
And when YouTube struck down Amberlynn's infamous rotisserie chicken video about a year ago, Amber didn't do anything about it over the last year. Because again, it would require a minimum amount of self-reflection and action to not only acknowledge a mistake, but also to correct it. And Amberlynn has spent the last 13 years on YouTube practicing the art of self-delusion and deflection. She convinced herself that the only reason that video was taken down was because of fat phobia. Of course. And not because ALR was indulging in self-harming behavior while discussing it in front of thousands of people. No way, she's never done anything wrong. The audience of Girl World was at fault for victimizing her, remember? And now, in her mind, YouTube had just joined the list of perpetrators.
Say you're driving, right? And you're driving on a road that goes 60 miles per hour. And then they realize, actually, no, I think this road should be 45. So you're going down it, 45. And then a cop pulls you over. And they're like, last month you were going 60 down this, so I'm going to give you a ticket. And you're like, but wait a minute. I was allowed to then, though. Like, I was allowed to. That's what it feels like to me. I'm being punished for things that I posted years ago.
Amber has claimed she's being punished for past behavior in the light of a new policy. The thing is, ALR continued making feeder content on her YouTube platform, and even though YouTube's expanded policy on eating disorder and self-harm content was not implemented until April 18, 2023, 10 years after Amberlynn's YouTube debut, she has had plenty of time to clean up her content to abide by this new policy. rules change. Companies roll out new policies all the time. That is normal. Maybe the removal of the rotisserie chicken video would have served as a warning to anyone willing to look at the bigger picture. But to Amberlynn, it was just another unjustified attack.
So I was demonetized because I was mass reported hardcore. Like hardcore. And I was getting screenshots from forums and Facebooks, this and that, and the subreddits and the this and the that, where people were celebrating reporting me. So it became a hobby for some people. It became a let's take Amberlynn down type of thing. So I sent the appeal video, and they denied it. They denied it. They denied it.
Amberlynn claiming she was demonetized because she was misreported just follows the pattern she set up for herself. That nothing is ever her fault. It's her audience's fault, or YouTube's fault, or Beck's fault.
It has nothing to do with me, and everything to do with so many of you.
But the thing is, even if initially YouTube took her down as a precaution given a large number of reports, I would think the decision would have been reversed when she appealed. So if ALR was in the right, it doesn't matter if it was one report or 1,000 reports. Once a more in-depth review took place, she would have been fine, in my opinion. But I have never made money on YouTube, so this is just speculation, of course. This reaction, in my opinion, is just Amberlynn being the victim that she has set up herself to be.
Say you're at work and your boss comes up to you and says, I've decided I'm not going to pay you anymore. You can keep coming in, though. I don't think anyone would. I don't think anyone would. I don't think anyone would. I understand I wasn't coming on here as frequently as I should have been or would have been, could have been, but I was still coming.
Amber compared YouTube to a job where you no longer get paid because she wanted us to have sympathy for her. But then immediately she says, quote, I understand I wasn't coming on here as frequently as I should have or could have, but I was still coming. As if anyone with a regular job could ever relate to that. Normally, if you only show up to work when you want to, you get fired, which ALR was able to do for a decade with no great consequence. So excuse your audience for not being able to sympathize. The lack of understanding of how inconsistent those two statements are just exemplifies ALR's dismissal of her massive privilege over the last several years. This is another issue that her audience has had with her for a long time. Amberlynn had no problem talking about her hardships growing up, the horrific conditions that she was exposed to as a kid, and how much she didn't have growing up. However, she would have a hard time acknowledging how far the tables have turned. She didn't want to recognize how, unlike most people, she now had the time and resources to address the damage that her upbringing caused her. And in my opinion, the reason for that refusal was because if she admitted her privilege, she would actually have to address the root of her issues. And she did not want to. The only times Amberlynn would recognize her privilege was when she was boasting about it to her audience, such as when she was saying earlier this year how she could pay for everyone in her chat's utility bills. After all, that's how good she had it.
I cannot believe that I was a YouTuber. It was stupid, but I wanted it so bad. And it happened. I don't know how or why or what it may be, but it happened. And I'm so, so grateful. And it was something I never took for granted. Never, never, ever.
If Amberlynn didn't take this for granted, she would have had a safety net because she had the means to have built one. She would have invested in something. Maybe a different source of income, maybe an emergency fund. I kind of understand why she never bought a house, for example. She needed to be able to relocate to whatever corner of the United States her next caretaker led her to. So that makes sense from Amberlynn's messed up perspective. But a house is not the only thing she could have put her money towards. It doesn't matter that she's saying she never took her YouTube for granted. It doesn't matter that she's saying she never took her YouTube channel for granted. Her actions showed otherwise. Everything she did, blowing her money on trinkets and all kinds of crap, not having an emergency fund, not even trying to diversify her income streams, all of it shows that she very much took this for granted. After all, she has behaved horribly on YouTube for over a decade, and there were never consequences until recently, so she thought she could do whatever she wanted. That is taking something for granted, ma'am.
I grew up with nothing, so it's like the psychological weird thing that your mind does. You're gonna go one of two ways when you grow up with nothing. You're either gonna be super like, oh my god, I have to watch my money in case it all goes away. Or you're gonna be my extreme that I did is I need all the stuffs in case my money goes away. I don't know why I was like that.
And she could have figured out why she is like that. God knows she had all the time in the world to do so. But again, she made her bed.
Spend, spend, spend. Like, my hobbies are expensive. Like Lego and this and that. And I made a Cash App because someone told me to. They said it would probably be a good idea because you do have supporters. And so I made one. And that's pinned.
Even at the very end, Amberlynn cannot take responsibility for her own actions, her own choices. Sure, maybe someone gave her the idea of making a Cash App, but it was still her decision to take the idea and create the Cash App. But the way she chooses to phrase this is, quote, I made a Cash App because someone told me to. They said it would probably be a good idea because you do have supporters, end quote. I made a Cash App because someone told me to. Not because I thought, hey, that's a good idea. No. Because someone told her to. And this is one of the pillars of Amberlynn's downfall in full display. Her absolute refusal to take an ounce of accountability.
I'm gonna put my Cash App down below.
This refusal was also one of the reasons Amberlynn became a lolcow. We watched someone make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. Film those mistakes, edit them, upload them to YouTube while refusing to accept they were ever mistakes, and choosing instead to blame her audience for pointing the mistakes out, and choosing to become a self-made, self-proclaimed victim of an audience that begged Amberlynn to take care of herself, to take care of her pets, and to take care of her partners for years.
Twinkie has surgery on Friday. Twinkie has surgery on Friday.
And now, during her YouTube goodbye, Amberlynn tells us that Twinkie is having surgery to remove the lump on her back after many years of being questioned about that lump, and after telling her audience it was normal, just in time to ask for donations on her brand new Cash App. Could this be a coincidence? Maybe. I have always been a big proponent of the saying, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. But in this case, I think we can attribute the situation to malice. The malice of Amberlynn's negligence towards her pets during her entire YouTube career. And it's extremely upsetting knowing she adopted Romeo after getting rid of Rarity, just before losing her only source of income. Amberlynn has made her own choices as a fully grown adult with more resources than most people for many years. Her pets, however, never got a choice. Twinkie, after all she's been through in the hands of Amberlynn, is now being used as a prop in Amberlynn's advertisement campaign for her Cash App and Cameo.
I'm gonna put my Cash App down below.
Dearly beloved, we gather here to say our goodbyes.
Now that Zachary Michael has given us the send-off we all needed, a memorial service for Amberlynn's Demonetized YouTube channel, we can finally lay it to rest. It was a long time coming, even if Amberlynn Reid believes otherwise.
And that's the end of it. Till next time.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry I haven't had as much time to put into the channel. Unlike Amberlynn Reid, my hobbies are not expensive. They're actually free. But my time available to dedicate to it ebbs and flows, unfortunately. I have been, however, keeping up with everything, and it was surreal seeing Amberlynn's channel be demonized, as she says. It was crazy. I personally have a lot of ideas for videos, so over here it's business as usual. Thank you guys again for watching. Happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it, and see you next time. Bye, girls.
Goodbye.